Item 12, just a dozen, Community Facilities Network Plan and Revised Action Plan 2022. So we got the GM here as well as Hannah, and I'll leave it to you ladies. I will move this and I'll ask for a seconder. Councillor Coombe, and I'll put it on the table for discussion. Tēnā kōrua, ladies.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you for having us this morning. Kia ora councillors and kia ora IMSB members. Ko Justine Haves Tokuingoa. I'm the General Manager of Regional Services and Strategy, and my colleague Hannah Elaine is with me as well this morning. I'd just like to acknowledge Hannah and a number of others from my department and Community and Social Policy who have worked collaboratively on this revised network action plan that we're presenting for your consideration this morning. So we will take the report as read, but we do just have a brief presentation to summarise the report and the revised plan. So in terms of framing, I guess, I wanted to acknowledge that the network plan itself was adopted in 2015, and alongside the network plan is the companion network plan action plan, which identifies prioritised projects and initiatives that deliver on the objectives of the network plan. The action plan itself is reviewed every 3 years, and that's the plan that we're here to present to you today. So in terms of what's new in the revised action plan that you have in front of you, previous actions have been updated in terms of their status to provide a clear picture of the progress that we've made so far and to signal the work that we currently have underway. 130 local board resolutions helped shape the update of the network plan action plan, and those responses to those local board resolutions are included for your information in attachment D. 34 new actions have been included. That they importantly include a proposed action for an assessment of the plan itself to see if it is still fit for purpose. So that's recognising that the plan is now 7 years old and our context has shifted somewhat, so we're recommending an assessment be completed to consider that. All actions, both old and new, have been reprioritised, so this is the area-based actions, have been prioritised using the process and weightings as outlined in the network plan itself. We'd like to acknowledge the impact of the governance framework review on the action plan. So the governance framework review makes no changes to the allocation of decision-making responsibility on this action plan. That is still the responsibility of PACE. And through the governing body considerations of the governance framework review, it was acknowledged that the network plan remains a really, really important guiding document in terms of our community's facilities network. The effect of the decision-making responsibility changes will be seen most clearly through the local board plan development process, which you'll be aware is getting underway in 2023. And what we expect to see in terms of that will be local boards identifying and confirming priorities to investigate for consideration through the long-term plan. So we hope and intend to provide advice to local boards that supports the direction of the network plan and the action plan itself. In terms of subsequent decision-making that may look different, the advice and recommendations given through the local board plan process and subsequently will differ particularly in the areas of potential new local services or facilities being established and making decisions on the roles of assets in delivering services. That includes, really importantly, aspects such as optimisation, renewals and maintenance service levels, and we're all aware of the conditions and the challenges that we face in terms of the portfolio, so we look forward to working with local boards in that regard. I'll now just touch on a couple of examples of completed actions that are summarised in the next few slides. They just provide some good news stories in terms of what we've been able to achieve through the last action plan. So the first example we have touched on with you before, one we're particularly proud of, a new library and community space in the Takanini area. It's a great example of how we were able to navigate clear community and mana whenua aspiration in terms of a community service provision in Takanini. It opened in March 2021, and the community was deeply involved in the design of the new community space, which is bilingual and based on the aspiration for a place underpinned by Te Tikanga Māori. So we're particularly proud of this, and it continues to be very successful in that community. In terms of the next example, it's Action 110, which has been completed with the support of the Waitemata Local Board. There was an aspiration to consider the establishment of a new facility within the Waitemata Local Board area with a particular focus on arts. Our investigation showed that there were actually already enough creative spaces available, but what was needed was genuine support for the community in accessing those spaces. So rather than invest in a new facility, an arts broker service was established to support the community to get access to those existing services that were available. And our last example also happens to be in the Waitemata Local Board area, which is the example of the provision of library facilities in Ponsonby and Greylin. This work was completed in 2019 and confirmed the ongoing need for service provision in this area. Also recognised the significant seismic issues that the Lees Institute building in Ponsonby faces. So given the financial constraints that we're facing, the response to restore the facility included looking for alternative sources of funding, such as community fundraising, philanthropic donations, targeted rates and service property optimisation. So again, it's a great example of us thinking broadly in terms of how we can continue to meet community service requirements, but in the most cost-effective way possible. And just to note, 2 properties will soon go on the market to fund the restoration of Lees, so an example of service property optimisation in practice. So in terms of the focus on the revised action plan that we're putting forward for your consideration, key things we'd like to draw attention to, there is a primary focus on completing projects that are already underway so that we can conclude work rather than continue to start new work and just face a volume of work in progress. We are aligning with the actions arising from the long-term plan 2021, and we are recommending priority actions related to investment priority areas. So that's in line with Council's growth areas and the Kaianga Ora growth program. And as I've mentioned, we also have the recommendation to include an assessment of whether the network plan itself is still fit for purpose. So all of these focus areas are in line with available staff resources to support delivery of these priority actions. So thank you for your time this morning. Happy to take any partai.
Thank you, Justine. Hannah, I know you're sitting there. Is there any further comments or anything else you wish to make?
No further comments. Kia ora.
Ka pai. I'll go to Deputy Chair, Councillor Casey, and then Councillor Coombe.
Yeah, thanks, Alfie. Yeah, thanks, Justine, for the presentation and the really good work on this. I just wanted to refer to the presentation this morning by Margie Watson, who did a very clear presentation on some issues in the Albert Eden Puki Tap-Up Award, and I just wondered if you would like to respond to those issues that she raised. In particular, it was issues in Owairaka, Sandringham and Point Chevalier. And just quickly, the first one was the Sandringham Community Centre upgrade. The second was the Point Chev Community Centre, which is in a kind of sad and sorry state. And is it fit for purpose? And finally, to have Owairaka, which is just down the road here, included as an investment priority area. So if you're unable to respond today, that's fine. But if you have some initial thoughts, I'd love to hear them. Thanks, Justine.
Kia ora, Councillor Casey. Thank you for the question. I guess overarchingly, we would like to acknowledge the significant input from the Albert Eden Local Board, which has been recognised through Attachment D, and we have provided, as you know, some preliminary staff responses to those. Overarchingly, I guess there's two things that I'd like to note. One is that the assessment is in line with the network plan. So the results, I guess, of the assessments that we see as some of those items being non-priority items means that they are still valid and will continue to be valid for consideration. But in the scheme of the network overall, they don't kind of rise to the top, I guess. So it is relative in terms of our assessment of other actions in the plan. But the second point I wanted to make is just that we are regularly reviewing that assessment. So in particular with Point Chev Community Centre, but also with the Mount Albert Library, which was also touched on, those are examples of where we are making careful assessment of other pace of growth to determine appropriate timing. So just want to reiterate, I guess, that we are continuing to monitor and that we do recognise a driver, one of our drivers being third-party activity. So that is a key thing that we continue to monitor.
So it's under constant review then, it's an organic plan.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
That's great, thank you.
Kia ora.
Kapai. Councillor Coon.
Thanks, Chair. Kia ora koroa. Thank you for the presentation and bringing this to us today. I've got two partai, if I may. The first one is a follow-on from Councillor Casey's comments. So you're saying this is kind of a live document action plan, love and action plan. But I just wonder, does the resolution provide for that, for it to be constantly kind of updated? Because we're improving what's the actual document rather than does that need to be noted or given some authority so that you can keep it up to date and respond to those issues that Chair Watson raised?
Kia ora, Councillor, and thank you for the question. I am comfortable with the recommendation as it's framed. So we have the ability to, I guess, adapt within the 3-year period as we need to, and we would then include an updated status in a subsequent revised plan. So the outlook that we take in terms of this prioritisation exercise is aligned with all council growth data and takes quite a long-term view. So there'd have to be very significant activity within a 3-year window to trigger a change within that window. It's more likely that it would trigger a revised priority at the next plan review.
Thank you, that sounds good. And if I may, Matua, just one more partai. As there were examples used from Waitemata, I can't help but zero in on a couple of those. And I know, Hannah, we've been working on these from when I was on the local board. So thank you for your mahi on these facilities. The two, the first one is the update around the Greylin Library, and the actual wording, I think, is investigate provision of library facilities in the area, giving consideration to facility condition and sustainability, and the local board are advocating for that. But as soon as this kind of is made public, it's the local community think this is code for selling the Greylin Library Hall and the much-loved current building. So I'd like an update on that one, if I may. I think it really needs to be clarified what this actually means.
Kia ora. Thank you, Councillor. Firstly, it's the local board's decision, because it's a local board asset, on whether the Greylin Library or any local assets, are used to fund other work. My understanding is that's not on the agenda at the moment. Yeah. What we do know is that the community centre and the library aren't currently fit for purpose. So something needs to happen. That's what the investigation is.
Thank you.
What could that thing be?
So it's an investigation. It's not we're going to end up selling heritage buildings or closing down the library. So that's good. And if I supplementary to that, if I may, the update around the Lees Institute, which of course everybody is very much wants to see this restoration. I I understand it's actually kind of moved on a bit more than just saying it's going to happen, and that the scope has kind of expanded, and so of the potential upgrade. So that means that more funding's, it's not actually funded the option that's going to come to the local board in the next couple of months. So I just wonder if that's maybe a little bit of a gloss over what really is happening at the moment.
Thank you. So it was just Tuesday, just 2 days ago, myself and Roscoe Webb from Community Facilities presented the concept design options for the seismic remediation, modernisation and heritage preservation of Lees Institute. So at that workshop, the board seemed to receive those drawings very well, and we'll be back with a business report to that local board next month, so that we can then go out to community and ask how they'd like to proceed.
With a funded option, now that all the different possible strands of funding have been identified.
So that's what we'll put to the community.
Yeah.
We've got two options. One we can already fund. The second, that is an option that will last us another 100 years. We need just a little bit more money. What do you think?
Mihi, thank you.
Kapai. There's three more. Pātai, Matua Kake, Councillor Hills, and then Councillor Fletcher. Kia ora.
Kia ora tātou. So first of all, just wanted to say thank you for the reference to Te Pātaka Kōrero Takanini. In terms of the, I was one of the, this is through the chair, this is an example of where the consultation early on they got it right. And, although I didn't get my library over the railway as requested, it's pretty close by in terms of accessibility. So, but I just wanted to, and I'm really pleased that you highlighted in your presentation the Pātaka Kōrero. So it moved from a library or to a Pātaka Kōrero, which is exactly what it is. As a person that's hired that place, hired one of the facilities there, I can tell you it's an awesome place. It's an awesome venue. So kia ora to the staff, kia ora to the planners, kia ora to the consultants for getting that one right. My pātai, though, is around, can you outline key actions within the revised action plan that will improve Māori outcomes in Tāmaki Makaurau? You spoiled me with Te Pātaka Kōrero Takanini as a good example, but what can you tell me about the revised action plan in terms of how it will improve Māori outcomes?
Kia ora, Member Kake, thank you for the question. I think it's really, really important. Thank you also for the acknowledgement in terms of that mahi. I think we've chosen to, I suppose, speak to that example today because it is a good example of what's possible and of our intention. The plan itself doesn't specifically consider particular areas because I guess it's important to acknowledge that that opportunity exists everywhere. So what we are keen to do is to make sure that through the delivery of these investigations, that the consideration of how we contribute strongly to the delivery of Māori outcomes is first and foremost in those investigations, as it was in Takanini. So I guess without kind of wanting to skim over it, the opportunity is everywhere and the intent is there, and it's through the investigation stage that we really explore that opportunity further to understand what it means specifically in place and what options there are to realise those aspirations.
Thank you. Pleased to hear it's on the radar, though,
Absolutely.
Kapai. Councillor Fletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question, please may I note that there may be potential conflict on 145. If you record that, but my question relates specifically to Puki Tapapa. Councillor Casey has asked those questions on Albert Eden, but if the officers could just outline, with regards to Cameron Pool, it is a priority in terms of growth in the area and the wider body of work that's going to take place with regard the work with Housing New Zealand and so forth. But could you give me a little more insight with the Cameron Pool as to whether there is further consideration as to fundraising? I know it's part of the wider body of work looking at needs assessment of pool and recreational services region-wide, but I just want to understand what the priority there actually means.
Kia ora, Councillor. Thank you for that pātai. So in terms of Cameron Pool, you'll be pleased to know I've already gone and had a site visit with the local board. So the first step is for Community and Social Policy would carry out the action looking at the growth areas, of which that is one. Once they've finished that work, then my team have already got on their work program to investigate the need of community facilities in that area. So we're not up to the funding question just yet. First, we'll look at the need of the community, how we can meet that need, and then how we can fund that need.
Okay, so you haven't the looking forward once that assessment has been undertaken to contemplate additional forms of fundraising and so forth. I'm
sorry, I missed the start of your question.
Sorry, I'm trying to avoid coughing. So it's probably a question that relates to a number of these assessments, but you referred specifically to fundraising with regards to the Lees Institute, and I think that opportunity exists in other places as well. So it's really to understand officers' expectations when we finish our assessments as to how communities can be involved in fundraising.
Kia ora.
I can come back. I can come back to you personally.
I'm happy to comment briefly, if that's okay. I guess to Hannah's point, the first part of our investigation is to understand what the requirement is in any community, including with the Cameron Pool example. And then as a secondary step, the consideration is what are our options to meet that need. So yes, I can assure you that, again, particularly given our current conditions, we need to think really broadly in terms of options, and that absolutely includes how we can deliver with others and how we can include the community in those delivery options. So very open-minded, and it's a subsequent phase, I guess.
Thank you for that. And the second question that I had relates to Monte Cecilia Park and the facilities that are there, which you would be aware of. Did that any of those needs, are they assessed in any form? I know it's there's a lot of work being undertaken by the Puketapa local board in that area, but I'm just generally interested as to what work was undertaken in terms of any needs assessment for those facilities.
So that's an example of a facility, I guess, which is in play and is managed more through operating arrangements and renewals. So there's not a trigger for a specific action in the plan at this stage, either because of growth or because of the existing condition of the building. So we're managing, I guess, that relationship and the facility itself more from a kind of BAU mode, I guess, than identified through this plan.
Thank you.
Councillor Fletcher, I just want to get some clarification because it didn't come through with the sound around the conflict you mentioned at the beginning. So our staff just here
Oh,
wanted
sorry,
to see.
it related to it 145, which is the sports park, which is the Franklin Ollie. But I don't see it as something too formal today. I just as a potential conflict. I just signal it.
Kapai, thank you.
I'm a
Got that one
trustee
now.
with that part.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you, Councillor Fletcher. So look, just to you both ladies, thank you so much also for those that are online. So I'm just going to now open it up for any whakaaro, any comments. Kia ora. I'm going to give the 3-second rule as I always do, but just to give people time. Justine, to you, Hannah and the team, I just want to acknowledge the mahi with this and also all the other reports, but with this one here, and in particular the 130 local board resolutions that you said in your PowerPoint help shape the update. So, you know, to your team, and I've spoken to Hannah personally just to sort of say, you know, thank you for that. And also as the chair from Albert Eden Margie said that, you know, having one of the four, that's actually quite good. Having one out of four, but there's going to be ongoing kōrero with all the other advocacy items. So I just wanted to sort of acknowledge you, and that's me. There's no further whakaaro. So it's been moved and seconded. So I'm going to put the resolution. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Kia ora. Look, normally we'll try and sort of have a break, and we'll have a break now, and it's normally after 2 hours. And it's a comfort break for about 10 minutes. That'll give the staff an opportunity to go and get a cake and a cup of coffee. And then we'll come back in 10 minutes, Maya. So if we look at 20 past, and then we've got 3 more items, and I'll be in the hands of the committee. Kia ora.